Heartwarming discovery. Waitress's hidden birthmark revealed as incredible family legacy. In the heart of a bustling diner, the scent of fresh coffee and the sound of clattering plates filled the air. Sarah, a hardworking waitress, moved from table to table with the tempo of a well-rehearsed dance. Her smile warmed the room, hiding her tumultuous thoughts. Each day alive with the chatter of regulars, she cradled the hope of a better life for her children, waiting for the moments that tested her resilience to just float away. Yet, beneath her joyful exterior, an ache lingered, an emptiness from the father who left, a war veteran whose absence haunted her self-worth. On a chilly Tuesday, Sarah approached a table, her worn hands carrying steaming mugs of coffee. As she poured, a voice pierced the warmth of the diner. "What's that on your hand? A birthmark or a bruise?" A laugh erupted from the obnoxious customer. The surrounding patrons looked over, eyebrows raised in curiosity. Sarah's cheeks flushed, and she pressed her lips together, forcing a smile. This was just a part of her day. Just a reminder I'm human. She chuckled, but inside, her heart sank. "Actually, it might be something special," a voice chimed in, soft yet firm. A local historian leaned toward her, intrigued by the discomfort he had witnessed. "It resembles the marks of your ancestors, tied to their legacy in this very community. They fought for social justice, carried burdens that shaped us all." His words struck her, a fiery bolt of connection igniting layers of curiosity she had never thought to explore. Seriously? A flicker of hope ignited a whisper to uncover a past she didn't know existed. The chatter around the diner settled into a lighter rhythm, as patrons pivoted from mockery to admiration. They were engaged. Sarah felt the shift, as if experiences shared over coffee had transformed her little segment of the world. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue the excitement brewed inside her. Each visit to her family's past painted a new layer of depth, and the realization that her lineage was woven with courage awakened a sense of pride. But with every turn unveiled the weight of her father's legacy, the very shadow she had tried so hard to escape. In the approaching weeks, Sarah dove into her roots, poring over old records and photographs that spoke of struggle and triumph. Each discovery lit a fire within her that grew hotter with the arrival of a letter, a reunion invitation from the estranged father she had long ago resigned to the past. Her heart raced. Was this the moment she had been yearning for? Could forgiveness reshape their fractured bond? Or would it fracture her heart further? Questions filled her mind like the aroma of brewed coffee, each swirling thought pulling her in opposing directions. As the day approached, the chatter within the diner carried stories of her great-grandparents' sacrifices. Each tale echoed in her chest, igniting determination. Would she confront her father, embracing a future shaped by heritage, or would she continue her journey unshackled by family ghosts? As Sarah stood at the crossroads of her life, the air thick with emotion, she knew this was just the beginning. Sarah's heart thudded in her chest like a drum, the sound reverberating through her thoughts. That letter, with its faded ink and carefully pressed seal, had turned her world upside down. The weight of the decision before her felt colossal. She could either reach for a long-awaited reconciliation or keep the walls she had built so high. Each moment felt like an eternity. As the diner buzzed with laughter and the clinking of forks, she found herself rewinding to fleeting memories of her father, the man who had once held her small hand, the ghost of a smile she could no longer picture clearly. No matter how many times she tried to recall him, the softness of the past was often marred by betrayal and hurt. "Is everything all right, Sarah?" came the familiar voice of Janice, the breakfast cook, breaking her reverie. Sarah turned and forced a smile, even as her mind raced. Janice, though only a cook, had a way of reading people. "You look deep in thought." "Just thinking about family," Sarah replied, her voice steady but her heart fluttering. Should she confide in Janice? Part of her longed for connection, yet another part was terrified of vulnerability. It was easier to smile, and pretend everything was okay. Family can be tricky, Janice said, turning the spatula with heavy hands. Sometimes, the ones who hurt us the most are the ones who can heal us too. The words echoed within her. Could her father be that person? What if the reunion she dreaded transformed into one of healing? Yet, terror bubbled beneath her determination. What if he hadn't changed? As lunch service ebbed and flowed, the chatter in the diner reminded Sarah of swirling currents, exciting yet disorienting. Among the regulars, she noticed someone new, a middle-aged woman peering over a worn leather journal. Intrigued, Sarah approached her table. "What do you have there?" she asked, trying to bridge the gap of curiosity. The woman looked up and smiled, her blue eyes reflecting an old wisdom. "This," she said, tapping the journal, "is my grandmother's record of our family's journey from Europe after the war. Every story is a piece of who we are." Inspired, Sarah felt an undeniable pull. "Maybe I need to start keeping a journal myself," she mused, the thought sparking a light in her heart. "There is so much about my own family I want to learn." "Do it," the woman encouraged warmly. "Take charge of your story." That evening, after closing the diner, Sarah sat alone at her kitchen table, staring at a blank page. Her hand trembled slightly as she picked up the pen, the tip hovering above the pristine paper. What should she write? Should she begin with her lineage or draft her swirling emotions about seeing her father again? The weight of unspoken words felt overwhelming, but she knew it was time to confront them. Finally, she wrote about her birthmark, the mark of her heritage. The strength it represented became a rallying cry, urging her forward. The stories of ancestors she had just uncovered began to flow onto the page. With each line, she released the knots of fear, replacing them with determination. As the ink dried, her phone buzzed with a notification, a reminder of the date she would meet her father. Her breath caught. It was real. There was no turning back. Gritting her teeth, she whispered a promise to herself: "I will not be afraid." But just as she steadied her resolve, another message chimed in, this one from her father, asking for the details of their meeting. The question hung in the air, heavy with unanswered emotions. What did it mean, this desperate attempt to re-establish what had been broken long ago? Sarah's heart raced. Would this be the confrontation she dreaded, or the conversation that opened doors to healing? Unsure, she realized that she couldn't predict the outcome. Maybe reconciliation was a journey of its own, like the path through her family's history. Could one meeting reshape not just their lives, but her understanding of herself? With her fingers poised over the keyboard, she felt the weight of possibility wrap around her heart. As she typed her response, she knew this was but a first step into the unknown, a leap into a legacy not just of pain, but of potential. What would happen when she faced her father again, and how would it change her perception of the future? The morning of the meeting dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the storm of emotions swirling within Sarah. She stood in front of the mirror, scrutinizing her reflection. It felt odd to be dressing for a reunion she had both yearned for and dreaded. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears, the rhythm quickening as she adjusted the collar of her blouse, trying to smooth out the invisible wrinkles of doubt. With a deep breath, she stepped into her shoes, her favorite pair, simple but grounding. Clothing always felt like a second skin, and today, she needed every ounce of confidence they could offer. As Sarah opened the diner's door and stepped outside, a gust of wind tossed her hair playfully. It was as if the world itself was urging her to embrace whatever lay ahead. The diner felt busier than usual. Conversations bounced off the walls, laughter floated through the air, but everything felt muted to Sarah. She grabbed a quick coffee from Janice, who shot her a knowing look. "You'll be all right, kiddo." Her words were laced with a blend of encouragement and maternal warmth. The kitchen was a chaotic symphony, but Sarah felt wrapped in a cocoon of support. "Just keep your heart open," Janice added, squeezing her shoulder gently. Sarah nodded, even as her gut twisted with uncertainty. As the clock ticked on, dread and anticipation battled within her. She glanced at her phone, the screen illuminating messages from her father that she hadn't allowed herself to fully read. Each ping added a layer of complexity to her tangled feelings. Was he nervous too? Or was he merely putting on a brave face like she was attempting to do? She finished her shift and made her way through the familiar streets, the sun casting long shadows as she approached the cafe where they would meet. The The comforting aroma of coffee wafted through the air, pulling her forward. For a moment, she thought of Janice's words again. The healing that lay within familial bonds could reshape her future, but only if she dared to step into the unknown. Inside the cafe, she spotted him. Her breath hitched. There was the man from her memories older, lines etched into his face that told stories of pain, regret, and perhaps lessons learned. His eyes met hers, and they flickered with the spark of recognition. It was the first opening Sarah felt, but was it enough? Sarah, he smiled uncertainly, but it felt like the walls between them were still impossibly thick. She could see the mix of hope and fear mirrored in his expression, and suddenly the weight of their years apart felt crushing. "Dad," she managed to say, her voice a whisper caught on the edge of a tremor. Silence enveloped them, a silent acknowledgement of lost time and unspoken words. They sat down, and she almost reached for her phone again. Should she start the conversation? What if this turned into a painful revisit of the past? Her heart raced, not in retreat, but in the determination to take that very first leap of faith. Can we start over?" he asked, his voice low but earnest. His words hung in the air, tangible and heavy. Did they truly have the chance to rewrite their narrative? Sarah's heart clenched, but hope flickered within her core. Maybe this was a moment where they could begin to untangle the mess of emotions that had kept them apart for so long. But just as the weight of their past threatened to pull them under, Sarah remembered the birthmark she had begun to embrace as part of her story. The mark of heritage, the legacy she was ready to claim. "I want to hear your story first," she said, surprising herself. "What led you to leave?" His gaze dropped, but then slowly returned, determination glinting in his eyes. As he began to share, Sarah felt that familiar rush of emotions swelling within her. The journey had just begun, and as deep-rooted fears began to surface, so did glimmers of potential healing. What would his story reveal about the man he had become? And could it bridge the chasm of hurt between them? As the weight of the past began to slide away, Sarah held her breath, ready for the truth that could ignite change. As he took a deep breath, Sarah felt the gravity of the moment. This was the unfolding of a story they both needed to hear. The cafe buzzed around them, laughter and the clinking of cups ever present. But for Sarah and her father, it felt as if the world had narrowed down to just their small table. "I left because I thought it was for the best," he started, his voice trembling slightly as he searched for the right words. "I was young, scared, and overwhelmed. Your mother, she loved this place. She loved you. I thought leaving would spare both of you from the mess I created. I didn't want to hurt you." The ache in Sarah's chest deepened. She had grown up with that emptiness, the echoes of what could have been. Yet as he spoke, there was a shift within her, a rush of compassion mingling with anger. "But you left us," she said quietly, her voice quivering under the weight of years. "You didn't even try to stay." His eyes darkened with guilt. "You're right. I didn't. I thought it was better to be gone than to stay and lose myself even further. The truth is I thought I was doing it for you, but I was only thinking of myself." There it was, the raw honesty she had longed to hear. It was painful, yet liberating. The buried pain began to dissolve under the light of his confession. "I've had so much time to think." He shifted in his seat, his face fully focused on her. "I've missed so much, the milestones, the moments that made life worth living. I had no idea if you would ever forgive me, but I always hoped you'd understand one day." She nodded slowly, feeling the tears brim in her eyes. She had wanted him to say that for so long. "It doesn't excuse the hurt," she replied, a slight tremor in her voice. "I know," he said quickly, almost cutting her off. "I'm not asking for forgiveness today. I'm just asking for a chance to explain. I hope you'll see this was never easy for me." The emotions swirled wildly within her. Each word peeled back layers of hurt she had carried for years. There was something unusually comforting about his honesty, a softness in the edges of her heart that began to unfurl. "What happened after you left?" she asked, surprised at her own curiosity. "Did you ever think of coming back?" A shadow passed over his face, and he ran a hand through his graying hair. "I thought of it every day, but the longer I stayed away, the guilt compounded. It seemed impossible to come back and face you. I thought I'd ruin everything all over again." Silence settled between them, filled with the weight of everything unspoken. Sarah's heart ached knowing her father had endured just as much turmoil, while she had been fighting her battles alone. "I never knew how to find you," he finally said. "I heard about you from family, but I always felt like a ghost." The dichotomy of pain and yearning made her heart race. There was agony in the past, yet an ember of possibility flickered within her. "Ignorance of the truth made the hurt sharper for me," she admitted. "But maybe knowing it is a start. Maybe it's step one towards coming together in some way." His eyes softened, and he reached for her hand. Instinctively, she recoiled but then hesitated, allowing just the faintest brush of their fingers. "I want to be in your life, if you'll let me." The words hung in the air, powerful and resonant. Did she even want that? With so much unresolved hurt, was she prepared to open that door? Just then, the cafe door swung open, and a clamorous group spilled in, breaking their moment of vulnerability. Sarah felt a jolt of anxiety in the interruption. The journey of reconciliation teetered on the edge of collapse, threatening to plunge back into unexplored silence. But despite the sudden chaos, a feeling stirred deep within her. Could she truly find a way to move past the hurt? The prospect felt terrifying yet exhilarating. And as she looked at her father's hopeful face, Sarah couldn't help but wonder was the courage to embrace her heart's desire already within her reach. The interruption sent a ripple of nervous energy through Sarah, shuffling her thoughts. Laughter and chatter enveloped them. The sounds felt foreign after such a heavy conversation. She glanced around, noting the shifts in the cafe's atmosphere, the lightness in contrast to her own turmoil. "I just need a moment," she murmured, breaking eye contact with him and focusing on the swirling designs of the tablecloth instead. "Of course," he replied quietly, giving her space. As the loud group settled in, Sarah tried to process everything he had said. Each revelation twisted and swayed among her emotions like the steam rising from the now-cold coffee cup in front of her. Guilt washed over her for feeling so angry for so many years, when he had been grappling with the weight of his decisions all along. But could she truly allow him back into her life? Could she risk opening old wounds and possibly creating new ones? Suddenly, he cleared his throat, breaking through her racing thoughts. "I understand if you need time. I can wait." His voice was steady, filled with an unwavering resolve that caught her attention. "But I want you to know I'm not going anywhere this time. I'm ready to face whatever comes." His words struck something deep inside her, an almost primal instinct to fight back against the hurt, but also an equally fierce instinct to embrace the possibility of closeness. She felt a kinship with him that she hadn't recognized before. It warmed her chest, but filled her with fear. "It's hard for me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, attempting to explain the tempest brewing within her. "I've built this wall, and it feels like a fortress. I don't know how to let anyone in." "I'm not here to push," he insisted gently. "I'll stand outside your walls. Take your time." Taking a deep breath, Sarah looked at him. The years of absence were etched in his face. Yes, but so was a yearning, the same yearning she felt deep down for connection and understanding. "I always felt like I didn't belong anywhere," she admitted, feeling vulnerable yet liberated. "I thought maybe that was because you weren't around." His eyes glistened, a testament to their shared pain. "Then, let us build something new together if you'll allow me. Something stronger than what we've carried into this moment." Before she could respond, the laughter from the nearby table escalated into raucous joy. A couple of friends involved in animated conversation had drawn the attention of the cafe, distracting even Sarah momentarily, easing the tension that had settled heavily over them. "Maybe we shouldn't rush this," she suggested, surprising herself again. "What if we don't talk about it for a while? Just let it be." He smiled softly, and she could see the appreciation in his gaze. "We can take it slow, for sure. I'm just grateful that we're sharing this space." As they settled into a more comfortable silence, the din of the cafe faded slightly. Sarah's heart began to calm as laughter trickled back into the background. The chaos felt manageable, now not something that would drown out their conversation, but rather a reminder that life continued around them. "Can I ask you something?" She broke the silence. "Has it been hard for you, adjusting after all these years?" He contemplated her question deeply, the air thick with anticipation. "Daily," he confessed, "but I've clung to the hope that I could make things right. I guess everything is just a step toward it." His words resonated within her like a soft bell, ringing with the possibility of hope and healing. But then, a nagging thought pulled at her mind, a worry that if she opened up too soon, she might find herself hurt again. Her own smile faded, replaced with uncertainty. And what if I can't? He paused, searching her eyes for an answer. Then we'll navigate that together, he said gently, as if placing an invisible anchor between them. A flicker of hope ignited in Sarah's chest, a welcoming warmth. Just when she had begun to feel some resolve emerge from the turmoil, the cafe door swung wide again. This time, a young waitress stepped in, her lively demeanor cutting through the tension anew, and Sarah caught sight of something unusual on her wrist. Was that a birthmark? It was in the shape of a heart. Excuse me, is that a birthmark? Sarah asked impulsively, her curiosity surfacing as the waitress approached. Yep, isn't it cool? The waitress replied with unfiltered enthusiasm. As she continued talking, Sarah felt something shift within her, a bond forming with a stranger who illuminated a glimpse of familiarity. But little did she know, the waitress carried a legacy intertwined with her very own. And just like that, they were pulled into a new mystery, igniting questions that loomed over both Sarah and her father, proving once more that life is full of unexpected connections. The waitress leaned over their table, her excitement lighting up the dim cafe. Sarah couldn't help but be drawn in by her genuine smile. You know, the waitress continued, I've had this birthmark since I was born. Everyone always asks about it. I call it my lucky mark. Sarah felt a strange surge of warmth flush through her, one that stirred a mix of curiosity and nostalgia. Lucky mark? She echoed, trying to make sense of it all. Yeah, I believe it's a sign. Like, it means I'm meant for something special, you know? The waitress shrugged, still beaming. And sometimes, I think maybe it connects me to something bigger. Like my family's history. I love hearing old stories about my great-grandma. The mention of family struck a chord. Sarah exchanged a quick glance with her father, who seemed lost in thought, his unspoken questions hanging heavy between them. Their shared pain, their longing for connection, it all collided with this seemingly random moment. And yet it felt anything but. You really believe that? Sarah asked, intrigued. She wanted to understand what this waitress felt, to grasp how a birthmark could weave hope into her life. Absolutely. The waitress laughed, her energy infectious. Her name was Marjorie, and she had a heart-shaped birthmark like mine. My mom told me tales about her, how she always stood out in a crowd, how brave she was. I think she left me more than just genes, she left me love. My mom swears it comes from her. As Sarah listened, she could almost see the stories swirling in the air like the steam from her lukewarm coffee. The waitress's belief that her mark was a token connecting her to her past resonated with the very struggle she faced. Could she, too, find something special in her own history? Have you ever thought about your own stories? The waitress asked, eyes sparkling with genuine interest. Family can surprise you. Sarah hesitated, feeling the weight of all her emotions. This connection was unexpected but welcomed. I've lost touch with it, honestly. It's complicated, she admitted, her voice trembling slightly as she opened a door she had locked tight for so long. I get it, the waitress said, empathy flooding her expression. But sometimes, the hardest paths lead to the most beautiful places. You never know what you'll find if you let it in. Her words felt like a soft nudge, a gentle call to explore the emotional landscape within her. Sarah's heart raced. Here she was, sitting with a stranger who knew nothing of her life, yet somehow she felt understood. It was as if the universe was sending her a message, urging her to embrace the possibility of healing with a kind of openness she had long denied herself. Her father watched, his eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Maybe it's time we both start exploring our stories, he suggested, voice thick with emotion. Together, Sarah added, feeling stronger in that moment. Perhaps there was light at the end of their winding tunnel of hurt. Yes, the waitress chimed in. I mean, why not? You never know what you'll discover about yourselves. Family is wild that way. Each word ignited an ember within Sarah, stoking a fire of hope that had been flickering dimly for years. Just as the waitress turned away to serve another table, a thought hit Sarah like a jolt. Do you know anything about your family history? I mean, beyond your great-grandma. She leaned in. The air felt electric, charged with anticipation. Actually, the waitress said, pausing. Her brow looked furrowed for the first time. There are some stories about a long-lost cousin, but I've never been able to dig deep. Just then, a moment struck her heart with absolute clarity. The act of sharing stories, of exploring their histories, was exactly what she and her father needed. They had to allow the past to seep into their present, to paint bright strokes over the canvas of their lives. If sensing the shift, her father leaned forward, his gaze intent. We should find out more. Not just for ourselves, but for future generations. Yeah, Sarah agreed, unexpected excitement bubbling within her. We could start. Together. But before she could voice the adrenaline-fueled plans racing in her mind, a shadow fell across their table. It was small and fleeting, but it caught both their eyes. Another waitress entered, this one looking anxious, her hands fidgeting. Sorry to interrupt, she said hesitantly. But there is something important about the last order that needs your attention. As she spoke, Sarah felt her heart pound. What could possibly come next? Was this disruption the start of something momentous, or just another obstacle in a long line of unfulfilled hopes? Something important? She echoed, heart racing as she waited for the answer. The anxious waitress shifted from one foot to the other, her brow knit with uncertainty. Yes, on the last order it was for a customer who is related to, well, someone from your family, she stammered, eyes darting between Sarah and her father. The words hung in the air like a vapor, dense with possibility. Sarah exchanged a wide-eyed glance with her dad. What did she just hear? Related to our family? She managed, surprised her voice didn't tremble. Yeah, it sounds odd. I know, the waitress continued, her confidence faltering. But it seems there was a mix-up with names. He mentioned something about a lineage that goes way back, and your last name it stood out. Her heart quickened. Do you remember what he said? Any details? The waitress's face brightened slightly at the hope in Sarah's eyes. I didn't catch everything, but he said your last name made him curious. He thinks you might be distant relatives. I can ask him if he wants to speak with you, if that's all right. Tension crackled, filling the small space around them. Yes, please, Sarah replied, glancing at her father, who was now fully alert, his attention intensely focused on the waitress. We'd love to find out more. The waitress nodded and ducked out of sight, leaving them on the edge of their seats. Sarah's mind raced. This was a chance, a door opening to more roots, to their family tree that had been blurred and fragmented. Dad, do you think there is any truth to this? She asked quietly, unsure if she was even ready for an answer. He took a moment, a thoughtful pause as his gaze drifted to the ceiling. It's possible, he finally said, his voice a mixture of hope and disbelief. Our family, it's complicated. But I always felt there were more pieces to our puzzle. The tension of uncertainty bubbled back into the air as their heads swirled with possibilities. After what felt like an eternity, the waitress returned, this time accompanied by an older man. He had a strong presence, with warm eyes and the kind of smile that melted away hesitations. You're Sarah, right? He asked, his voice steady and warm. Yes, she breathed, a flutter of excitement mixing with nerves. And this is my dad, Tom. Nice to meet you both, he said, extending a hand and shaking theirs firmly. I'm Frank. I know this sounds unusual, but I believe we might be family. Family? Tom echoed, a frown forming just above his brow. Frank nodded, looking earnest. I've been tracing my roots for some time now. Your last name caught my attention for a reason, and I think I found some connections. It's a bit of a long story. Would you like to hear it? Sarah could hardly breathe. This was no longer just an intriguing exchange. It felt like a crossroads, a moment that might ignite a journey into the depths of her family's past. All those thoughts she had about digging into their history coalesced into a single chance. Yes, please, she urged, her voice barely above a whisper, yet full of fervor. We want to know everything. Frank sat down, his posture relaxed but filled with purpose. He began to draw a tale from his past, weaving threads of stories that reached back generations. As he spoke, Sarah's heart brimmed with hope, a sense of belonging awakening within her. But just as she felt the stories intertwine, he paused, a thoughtful look crossing his face. There is something else. I must mention something that could change your view of your family completely. Sarah felt butterflies dance in her stomach. It was as if she had stepped onto a path lined with unanswered questions, and every step forward only led to deepening mysteries. Another layer to all of this? She asked, her voice barely containing the tremor of anticipation. Exactly, Frank replied, his expression serious. And it all connects back to Marjorie, and that lucky mark of yours. Tension hung heavy in the air, the spark igniting a yearning in Sarah to know what lay beyond the stories, a promise of revelation lingering just out of reach. What could that connection reveal? What secrets were waiting to be uncovered within their shared history? Suddenly, the past felt alive, with potential, waiting for her to dive in. Frank leaned closer, the weight of his words settling into the space between them. Marjorie, she's a name that carries a lot of history in our family. You may not realize it, he said, his voice low and steady, but she was a pivotal figure in our lineage. Her birthmark, it's like a symbol, a way to recognize each other. Sarah felt her heart race. A symbol? What do you mean? The mood shifted, electricity sparking between her curiosity and the careful way Frank chose his words. He took a deep breath, glancing at Tom, whose brows were furrowed in concentration. Years ago, Marjorie discovered certain traits in our family that have been passed down through generations. This, the birthmark, he pointed to the outline of where it would be on Sarah. It serves as a connection to our ancestry. It indicates a legacy of resilience and strength. Resilience, Tom echoed softly, almost to himself. Yes, Frank nodded, his eyes lit with passion. It's not just the mark itself, but everything it represents. The good and the bad, the stories of survival, and the ties that bind us together. Marjorie used her legacy as a way to bring family back to one another. The weight of his words enveloped Sarah. It was as if a shadow lifted just enough for light to seep in. So, you're saying this is more than just an odd occurrence? She asked, disbelief mingled with hope. Right. It means we're tied by blood and history in a way that may shock you when you discover it all, Frank replied. There are stories of trials and tribulations, and oddly enough, tales of fortune and luck intertwined with the mark. Sarah's excitement surged, but there was a glimmer of dread. So what happened to Marjorie? She asked, the inquiry leaving a void in her chest. Frank sighed, his eyes growing distant. Marjorie had to flee during difficult times. She faced many trials, but she never forgot her roots. The mark reminded her who she was, who we are. Tom shifted in his seat, the tension in his expression deepening. And these trials, what kind of trials? Frank met Tom's gaze, gravity anchoring his words. Secrets, Tom. Secrets that branch out like thick vines in our family tree. Some were buried deep for the sake of protection, others hidden away in shame. But they all come back to this mark. Sarah's head spun with the implications of what Frank was saying. You mean there are things we don't know, things we might be ashamed of? Such as life, Frank replied candidly. Every family has its shadows, and discovering them can be both enlightening and painful. The truth of his statement felt suffocating yet freeing at the same time. Are you saying we have to face these secrets? That they will affect us? It's part of knowing where you come from. Embracing both light and darkness can be the key to understanding ourselves, Frank said, his voice almost a whisper. The words settled in Sarah's heart, awakening the parts of her she didn't know were asleep. She felt a fierce determination rising within her. Then we have to find out every single detail. We owe it to Marjorie and all those who came before us. Frank smiled at her resolve. That's the spirit. We'll start piecing together these stories, but be prepared, some truths may be harder to bear than you expect. Just then, the restaurant's door swung open, a gust of wind bringing with it a cold draft. Sarah shuddered slightly, not just from the chill, but from the sensation of impending change. There was a newfound urgency within her, a sense that she was about to embark on a journey that would reshape everything she thought she knew. Are you ready for this? Frank asked, his eyes reflecting the same anticipation she felt bubbling inside her. Yes, she replied, a fierce spark igniting in her chest. I'm ready. With that, a new chapter of their lives began to unfold right before her. But as the conversation deepened, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that not all stories were ready to be shared. What is it we're about to uncover that may never see the light of day? She thought, and the question lingered, casting a shadow over the budding promise of family. As their discussion flowed, Sarah knew one thing. She would not back away from whatever lay ahead. She had to know for herself, for her family, and for the legacies intertwined with that tiny mark on her skin. What other secrets did Marjorie's legacy hold? As the cold draft settled into the restaurant, Sarah felt an electric current surge through her. The idea of their family history, wrapped in secrets and stories, was like a fire igniting in her veins. She glanced at Tom, whose eyes were filled with a mix of disbelief and curiosity. Frank's words echoed in her mind, stirring a sense of urgency within her. "All right, where do we start?" Sarah asked, her heart racing with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Frank leaned back in his chair, folding his hands thoughtfully. "There are old letters, journals, and perhaps even some hidden artifacts from Marjorie's time. We need to dig through our family archives. My father used to keep quite the collection." "Then let us do it." Tom jumped in enthusiastically, his earlier tension easing. "If Marjorie went through all this trouble, we owe it to her to uncover it. Plus, we might learn something about ourselves too." "Exactly," Frank agreed, meeting Tom's enthusiasm with a warm smile. "But I want you both to keep an open mind. What we find may challenge how you see our family." Sarah nodded, the excitement swelling in her chest like a balloon ready to burst. She couldn't help but wonder what kinds of stories lurked in the shadows of their family tree. "Let us meet tomorrow then, and we can start gathering everything," she proposed. A plan fell into place, but an undercurrent of apprehension mixed with her eagerness. After all, the things they might uncover could change everything. "Will you tell us more about Marjorie?" Tom asked, leaning forward. Frank hesitated, his gaze pulling away as if searching for the right path among memories. "Well, that's where the tales begin." The sound of silverware clanking interrupted him, and Sarah noticed the waitress standing nearby, her face beaming with a smile. "Can I refill your drinks?" she asked, brightening the mood with her warm demeanor. "Sure, thank you," Sarah replied. As the waitress moved away, Sarah caught a glimpse of a small birthmark peeking from her sleeve, identical in shape to the one Frank had described. A chill ran through her, a resonance that sparked her curiosity. Was it merely a coincidence? "Did you see that?" she blurted out, pointing to the waitress. Frank and Tom looked puzzled, but Sarah couldn't shake the feeling. "The waitress, she has a birthmark, just like mine." The weight of her words hung in the air, magnifying the connections she felt brewing just beneath the surface. What if there's more to Marjorie's legacy than we think? What if this mark ties more people together? She mused aloud. Tom leaned back, contemplating. Maybe it's not just a family thing. What if there are others out there who share this history? A smile spread across Sarah's face as she began imagining a wider circle, far beyond their immediate family. We could find them. Imagine sharing these stories with others who understand. It could be like finding a missing piece of ourselves in others. Frank's eyes sparkled with intrigue. "That's a beautiful thought, Sarah. It might just open up a whole new world of connections." As the conversation continued, laughter and ideas flowed between them, wrapping their small table in an insulated warmth against the cool shadows of their shared history. Yet, even amid their excitement, a quiet voice within Sarah urged her to tread carefully. "Are we ready for what we might find?" she wondered, biting her lip. The thought lingered, a whisper of doubt weaving through the fabric of their budding discoveries. When the waitress returned, she caught Sarah's eye once more, her own smile bursting with a kindness that felt different now. Was it coincidence, or was it fate? Could she be part of this legacy too? The question sat heavy in Sarah's mind as they left the restaurant, each step away from the table echoing with possibility. Tomorrow would begin their search into the past, but as she turned back one last time to look at the waitress, Sarah felt a rush of certainty. It wouldn't just be about family anymore. It would be about uncovering a wider legacy, a lineage of shared experiences that transcended time and blood. What if we're not just reclaiming our history, but building a new narrative as well? She thought. The night deepened around them, and with each passing moment, the threads connecting them to Marjorie and beyond tightened. What was awaiting them in the shadows of their ancestry? The sun rose bright and warm, spilling soft light into Sarah's kitchen. Excitement danced through her veins as she grabbed her notebook from the table, the pages filled with eager scribbles about her family's stories and hopes for the future. Today was a new beginning, the day they would embark on a journey to uncover truths they never knew existed. As she headed to the diner, thoughts of last night's conversation buzzed in her mind. She could still hear Frank's words about secrets, strength, and resilience echoing like a gentle reminder that healing often comes from understanding and connection. Her heart carried determination, but also a flutter of fear. What would they uncover? Janice greeted her with a warm smile as she entered the diner. "You look brighter today, kiddo. Ready for your adventure?" Sarah chuckled, her nerves settling slightly. I think so. Today feels important. The day passed in a flurry of energy, the hum of coffee machines and clattering dishes playing in the background as she served her customers, each exchange reinforcing the sense of community she cherished. Yet, deep inside, her anticipation of the meeting with Frank lingered, lighting her every thought. Finally, as evening approached, she met Tom and Frank at the local library, a crisp air wrapping around them as they shared stories that served as the foundation of what was to come. The library's old wooden shelves loomed like ancient guardians, filled with whispers of the past. They settled at a table, the scent of fading pages surrounding them like a cozy blanket. "All right, here we go," Frank said with a smile, pulling out a stack of dusty papers and photographs. "Let us get started." As they sifted through the yellowed pages, a sense of reverence washed over the table. There were letters from Marjorie, alive with her words and spirit. In them, she spoke of resilience in hard times, her hopes, her dreams, and the love she felt for her family. With every discovery, Sarah's connection to her ancestors deepened. "She fought so hard to keep us together," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. "And yet, I pushed away from that legacy." Tom reached across the table, his hand steadying hers. "You're reclaiming it now. We all are." As they continued, Frank pulled out a photo, a group portrait with Marjorie standing proudly in the center, her heart-shaped birthmark brightly marked on her arm. "This is her," he said softly. "And it shows, we're never alone. This mark is more than just a birthmark, it's a thread connecting us." Tears brimmed in Sarah's eyes, a radiant warmth blossoming in her chest. In that moment, everything shifted. The feeling of emptiness she had harbored for so long, the absence of her father, the weight of family expectations was pierced by a bright, shimmering thread of connection. They were woven together through history, and acknowledgement brought possibilities. As they shared stories and laughter, connections erupted. New names surfaced, stories of extended family members who shared their journeys and challenges. The realization felt enormous, like opening a treasure chest filled with gems that had been hidden away. Hours flew by, the air thick with laughter and discovery. The deeper they dove into their family history, the more a sense of belonging settled over Sarah's heart. The pain she felt about her father began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of compassion. Perhaps healing was a multi-generational journey, and they would walk through it together. As the evening light began to fade, a warmth enveloped the trio. "I can't believe how much we've uncovered," Tom said, looking at both Sarah and Frank. "It feels like we haven't just regained our history, but have built something entirely new." Sarah smiled broadly, a radiant gleam in her eyes. "Yeah, this isn't just about knowing what happened. It's about knowing who we are today and who we can become." With a newfound bond hugging around them, they all stood and, without thinking, joined hands. Under this act of unity, Sarah realized something remarkable, a weight lifting from her shoulders. She no longer needed to think of her past with sorrow. It was a tapestry of resilience, love, and stories waiting to unfold. "All right," Frank said, breaking the moment but not the bond. "Let us keep this going. We have so much more to explore." As they walked out, the sun dipped below the horizon, blushing the sky with colors reminiscent of hope. With each step they took, Sarah felt lighter, woven more into her legacy. A spark ignited in her heart. The future was brighter, filled with love and unity. Today wasn't just a step forward, it was the beginning of a celebration. Together, she thought, smiling to herself, they would discover their roots and heal along the way. Before leaving the library, Sarah turned to Frank and Tom, her heart full of emotions. "Let us keep digging, together. This story is just beginning." And with that, they stepped into a new dawn, a journey toward a legacy that could finally be embraced, filled with laughter and gratitude for the lives that brought them here. As you reflect on Sarah's journey, consider your own connections, your own stories waiting to be uncovered. Embrace your history. It holds the keys to your future. Now, it's your turn to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive stories that inspire and uplift. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us share these powerful transformations. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Only true fans understand the magic within our journey. Let us take this journey together.